Hey, I'm Sven Masterson, one of the co-founders and mentors in the Mentoring Men community. And in this video, I want to talk to you about something that men tell us all the time that they really desperately want. You might be thinking I'm going to tell you it's sex, but it's not. It's actually something different. It's something that you might be surprised by. Most men, when we ask them what they really want, tell us they want deep, emotional connection. It turns out, actually, that for most men we talk to who reach out to us, usually in pain and despair, sex is just a way that they see to experience deep emotional connection. In fact, as bad of a rap as men get for their desire for sex, it turns out that it's really this desire for deep emotional connection that fuels a lot of men's desire for sex. And so a man, interestingly, who thinks he has a high libido oftentimes just has a high need for deep emotional connection. And that can be really easy to misunderstand if you're a partner of such a man, or even if you're such a man who wonders why you have this kind of endless craving for this deep emotional connection. And so I want to talk about what does that even mean? What is a deep emotional connection? And how is it that men want this? Why do they want it? Why are they so bad at getting it? And how can they fix that or address that? And so first we got to talk about all three of these words. We have the word deep, the word emotional, and the word connection. I love that men say deep here, because what they're talking about when they say deep is this idea of substance, that men don't just want a shallow connection. I'm sure there's a lot of kind of ignorant men out in the world who do want a shallow connection. And I'm not speaking to those kind of men. I'm speaking to the man in this video who's like most men that contact us. They're very intelligent. They have a lot of emotional bandwidth. They are usually high achievers, high income earners. A lot of times they're special forces in the military. These are not just ignorant Bubba kind of men out there. These are men who live their lives very deliberately. They're business owners. They're highly achievement oriented. They're family men, oftentimes having numerous children. They're men that have been married for decades. They're highly loyal. They're high character. And these men, when you ask them about things, they want depth. And so when they say they want deep emotional connection, it's because they want something that's just beyond a mere kind of touch and go landing in the relationship department. They want quality time. They want investment. They want a sense that their hearts are united with each other in a relationship like marriage. And I think this is a great thing. This is a very virtuous part of these men. And it's important that men actually receive some accolades for this, because we're not all Homer Simpson and Al Bundy, right? There's tons of men in the world who want the best for themselves and the best for their relationship. And it's reflected in this word deep. Now, the second thing that men want is emotional connection. And men say this word emotional to clearly differentiate that though they enjoy sexual, physical intimacy, what they want is a sense of connection that transcends their physicality. They want something that's different than just physical touch, even though the vast majority of men we talk to like to tell us that their love language is physical touch. Usually, by the way, their second most prominent love language is words of encouragement. Now, it's pretty phenomenal to me that with talking to men, most men, the majority of them, list those two love languages as very, very essential to them. But it's kind of a giveaway here to what's going on with this desire for deep emotional connection. And so men use this word emotional to indicate that they want a kind of connection that isn't just about a physical moment. They want a certain kind of togetherness in a relationship that lets them feel certain things. And this is where it gets interesting. You see, when you ask a man, well, tell us more about this thing, connection. What is connection? What does it feel like? What do you get when you have connection? Then you start to discover some really interesting things. Men say, well, I get a sense of comfort. I get a sense of everything being all right. And if you drill into this, you hear men say, I feel affirmed, approved. I feel valid. I feel like a man. I feel respected, admired, appreciated, seen, heard, loved, celebrated, cherished, right? And what we're really discovering then, when men said they want deep emotional connection, is that men innately, without this, are experiencing a feeling of disconnection. And what I've come to see in my practice of speaking with tons of men around the world is the state of disconnection is actually a disconnection from self. And this is why it's so insidious in a relationship. You see, most of the men we talk to who are seeking deep emotional connection feel like it is forever evasive, that they can't find it, or that their partner, no matter how much they have tried and sought, is desiring to go a different way. And so that rejection, that turning away from her, just exacerbates this feeling of emptiness and this longing for this deep emotional connection. And it's because this man is already experiencing a sense of famine and hunger and thirst on his insides. And that thing he's hungry for, that he's calling connection, is actually disconnection from self. And so it's really important to understand this if you're in a relationship, if you're hungry for this kind of connection. I know that you think that the solution to this is in the female. It's in her attention, in her gaze, in her approval, in her touch, in her sexual interests or sexual involvement. But it's really not. You see, when you're experiencing those things, you're experiencing something. And within your insides, you're coming to a certain conclusions about meaning. And you just happen to be believing that her being that way means things about you. And this is where, if you begin to understand some of what's going on, you begin unlocking some keys that will significantly change your life and your sense of connection. Because it turns out she's never giving you connection. She's simply creating with you an experience in which you feel something based on your thoughts. And your thoughts lead you to the belief, I'm connected. But in reality, what you're experiencing is a soothing. And it's specifically a soothing of different kind of insidious insecurities in your life that you live with on a day-to-day basis that tell you, I might not be approved. I might not be loved or respected, appreciated. I might not be valuable or worthy. And so you're actually using this person's nod in your direction as evidence that you're a human being with value and worth and significance. And so this actually wrecks a relationship in the long term, because you begin to use your partner like a vending machine. And that vending machine is a complex vending machine that serves you not only, neurotransmitters like dopamine, but is also kind of giving you these little hits of your sense of well-being, which means you don't own your well-being. Your partner does. And that is a heavy, heavy responsibility for a partner in a romantic relationship. And this is why a woman says, I need space. It's because something in her says, I feel a tremendous amount of pressure and expectation. I feel a tremendous amount of obligation to keep being the machine that gives this man this sense of self. Why doesn't he get it from himself? And so it's even further complicated that the woman or the partner in the relationship is probably also very much in the same boat of not knowing herself to have value and worth and significance. And so she is also on a search for feeling these things. And if she's like most people on planet Earth who believe these are outside of us, you have like two people who are empty looking to each other to find fulfillment. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it is a recipe to erode a relationship, because it turns your attention that you give each other into this transactional way of being, where you're looking to them to provide something to you, and if they don't, you get hard emotions about it. And emotions like contempt, resentment, anger, hostility, frustration. You start scorekeeping. You start trying to manipulate, well, maybe if I do this, maybe she'll be pleased with me. And then, once again, I can know I'm okay, and then I'm a healthy human being. The problem is there's no end to this. And so men that live in this space tend to be perpetually anxious about the future. They really can't go very long, but maybe a couple of days without wondering once again, well, am I okay as a human being? Let me see. Let me go find my sweetheart and see if she'll give me attention. See if she'll touch me. See if she'll give me some sort of positive sign that we're okay and that I'm okay. And this gets really old. Not to mention, the men who are stuck in this give a tremendous amount of their life energy and attention and focus to playing this game. So much so that they don't realize it becomes the predominant narrative in which they live within their inner dialogue. They give so much attention to it that they're constantly wondering how they can feel better, how they can feel whole. Although they're not thinking about it in these terms, they're thinking in strategies about like, well, you know, the kids are about to go to bed, and if I tidy up, then maybe she won't feel like she has to tidy up, and she can give me that attention. And boy, won't it be nice to have her attention, right? And whether that's physical, sexual attention or not is irrelevant. It's just, it's the feeling of need, of getting something from someone else. All of that is an empty way of living. It's a powerless way of living. And it's a self-limiting way of living. And if you're listening to this video and you're living in this, you already know this. You probably struggle with anxiety. You probably struggle a good bit with fear and insecurity, although you might not call it those things. You probably give a good bit of time in your head to thinking about the future. I remember being so future-oriented for a good bit of my life that I would get irritated when my kids would talk to me because it felt like they were interrupting a conversation. And they were. They were interrupting the conversation, the dialogue I was kind of having in my mind with all these imaginary things in the future that were all oriented around how can I feel good? Because I didn't feel good. And so I lived in this just horrible place of not being present, of not feeling connected, and of feeling quite disconnected. And it almost cost me my marriage until I learned some critical things. First, that this search for connection is not found in another human being. It's found internally. It's actually found by understanding, why do I feel disconnected from myself? The truth is, brother, we feel disconnected from ourselves because at a very young age, we learn to judge ourselves. And anytime you judge anything, there's a winner and there's a loser. And in countless ways in our childhood, we deem ourselves losers who are, in our judgment, unworthy of being, valued, adored, cherished, loved, accepted, respected. And from that moment on, we start looking for people who will fix that, who will tell us we're okay, who will tell us we're lovable, who will tell us we're acceptable, because we have given up in a really young age the agency and our ability to see ourselves clearly. This is what I would say is the fault of shame, not the emotion of shame, but the belief that I am a bad thing, that I'm not good. And the moment I believe that I'm a bad thing or I might not be a good thing, I will look for other people who I deem to be good things to tell me I'm okay. And this becomes the basis of how many people go and relate in a long-term relationship and marriage, and it puts them in this perpetual state of neediness. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can actually learn to orient or retrain the mind through this wonderful thing we call neuroplasticity. You can reteach your brain to stop making these judgments, to stop living in a state of judgment where the conclusion of that judgment is that I'm not enough. You can actually relearn to see yourself with acceptance, with approval, with respect, with pleasure, and to approve of who you are. And the moment you start doing this, what you start finding is your need for the approval and nod and validation and affirmation of other people, it starts to diminish. Now, this is not an overnight process. In fact, it takes probably 6 to 12 months for most of the people that come our way. but it's effective and it works. And when that happens and you're losing that neediness that you have on other people to tell you that you're whole and okay, all those relationships improve. Because what you don't realize in those needy relationships is how much you judge those people for how well they meet your needs. All that dependency that you have creates hostility because we judge that which we are dependent on based on how well we believe they give us what we need. And in a relationship like marriage, it wrecks it. It totally wrecks it. And so if your marriage is struggling, if your wife has said, I need space, I'm feeling pressure, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, I think I want a divorce, I want separation, there's a very high probability that you actually have this issue, that you're really struggling with a sense of emotional, a desperation for emotional connection, a deep emotional connection. And because of this underlying need, you're creating a tremendous amount of pressure on your spouse to feel like this vending machine who's on the hook to give that to you. And so if you want your relationship to flourish, if you want to end the impending divorce or separation, if you want to actually work through something like a woman asking for space or saying she loves you but she's not in love with you, if you want to see that come to a good conclusion, my experience talking with hundreds of men and helping hundreds of men through this is the only path I've ever seen do it, is actually bringing a man to the point of realizing he's whole, learning to accept, appreciate, and love himself, and end the insecure neediness he has on his partner. Now, when he does that, that begins to heal the relationship. It doesn't always mean it'll turn around a relationship headed for divorce, but the majority of the time, the more thoroughly a man does that, the more likely that is. And so while the national divorce rate is probably something like 50%, when men contact us and they get involved with our process, our success rate is probably closer to 80%. Now, I still would love that to be higher, but I want to share that with you because it's important that you know that this is effective, that it's effective to become whole, to discover who you are, and that who you are is okay without your spouse's approval. Because until you can live in that truth reliably and consistently, the chances of you having a relationship again are very, very slim. And the chances of that even falling apart, if it were to happen, again, because a lot of guys kind of manage to eke out an extra mile or so in the grand scheme of things, and then they run into this same neediness again, and now they have just destroyed more trust, and it's not worth it, right? And the solution, although it's not easy, is simple. It's really about learning to kind of reorganize and clean up our insides, our heart and mind. And in mentoring men, and in my practice, we are very, very good at helping men with this process. We do that through a 6-month group mentoring process, although there's a one-on-one element possible too, called the Renewed Masculine Man. And we spend 6 months just kind of deconstructing all of a man's insides to help him see exactly, with a very sober lens, exactly where and how he's needy and dependent, and where he's given away his sense of self to the people in his life. And then after that man has a sober assessment of all of those places that he's not feeling whole, then we show him how to patch every one of those, how to heal all of those places where he feels like he's not acceptable, all those places where he's judged himself as unworthy. That process takes about 6 months, but it's very effective. It happens inside of a brotherhood of very connected, vulnerable, supportive, non-judgmental men who are really good at helping men go through this journey. And so if you are listening to this video saying, Sven, man, you're under my couch. We hear this all the time. You're in my walls. You're in my head. If that's you, if you're listening to this video, I want to invite you to just reach out and find out more, right? There's 2 ways you can do that. The first, you'll see in the video description, is a link to set up a one-on-one call with myself or one of our apprentices or mentors on Mentoring Men. We could talk to you about this. That's a free consultation. It's between 60 and 90 minutes. It's not a sales pitch. It's just an opportunity to talk to you about you, your heart, what's going on in your life, what's not going well, and what you'd like to be different. That's the first option. The second is a link to discover more about RMM. I would not necessarily recommend that you just jump right into that. I'd like to actually talk with you first to see if you're a good fit and to make sure you understand just the depth of what that is and what it entails. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the man focused on how his partner needs to change. It's for the man that is ultra clear and sober that he needs a work within himself. He needs an internal transformation or sorting out if his life is going to get better. That's for the man he's finally figured out that his only problem is himself. And if that's you, we'd love to talk to you about that. We'd love to tell you more about the Renewed Masculine Man. It's affordable, it's approachable, it's super, super supportive, and we hear great feedback from our clients about this every day. And both of those links are below in the video description. We hope you'll find out more. We hope you'll ask questions in the comments below, or you can email us if you like, sven@mentoring.men. And with that, I'll wish you the best in your search for being reconnected, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.